Have you ever wondered if there's a connection between your spiritual debts and your financial debts? Seems like a strange comparison, doesn't it? Well, let's talk about it. There are different kinds of debts we accumulate in our lives. Financial debt, of course, is what usually comes to mind. We borrow money for various reasons, to buy a home, to start a business, or even to get an education. And then we spend a good chunk of our lives paying it back, with interest. But there's another kind of debt that's not talked about as much. Spiritual debt, or what's often referred to in yogic philosophy as karmic debt. This is the idea that our actions, both good and bad, have consequences. When we do something wrong, we accumulate a debt that we eventually have to pay back, and sometimes that debt carries over into our next life. At first glance, these two types of debt may seem unrelated. After all, what does money have to do with karma? But when you look closer, you start to see some intriguing parallels. For instance, both financial and karmic debts are about balance. In the financial world, you borrow money, and then you repay it. In the spiritual world, you do something wrong, and then you make amends. It's all about maintaining a kind of equilibrium. But there's more to it than that. Both types of debt can also weigh heavily on us, causing stress and anxiety. They can hold us back and prevent us from living our best lives. So is it possible that by addressing our spiritual debts, we can also improve our financial situation? Can clearing our karmic slate lead to a more abundant and fulfilling life? These are big questions, and we're just scratching the surface. But as we continue this exploration, you'll start to see that the connection between spiritual and financial debts isn't as far-fetched as it might initially appear. As we dive deeper into this topic, you might find some surprising parallels between your spiritual and financial life. To understand this connection, we first need to unravel the concept of karmic debt. So what is karmic debt? Picture it as a spiritual IOU, a cosmic tally of actions that are yet to be balanced. It's rooted in the belief that our actions, both good and bad, follow us from one life to another, shaping our experiences and lessons. Much like financial debt, karmic debt isn't inherently evil. It's a tool for growth, a way of keeping us accountable. Every action, every decision, every word spoken has a consequence, a ripple effect that extends far beyond our immediate perception. This is the essence of karma. It's not about punishment, but rather about understanding and rectifying the imbalance caused by our actions. We often hear the phrase, "What goes around, comes around." This is karma in its simplest form. The energy that we put out into the world, whether positive or negative, will eventually find its way back to us. The idea of karmic debt can seem overwhelming, especially if we consider the potential accumulation over multiple lifetimes. But remember, it's about balance, not retribution. A quote from the ancient yogic text, the Bhagavad Gita, beautifully encapsulates this. A person is said to have achieved yoga, the union with the self, when the perfectly disciplined mind gets freedom from all desires and becomes absorbed in the self alone. This means we're not doomed to forever pay off our karmic debts. We can work towards clearing them, just as we do with financial debts. By acknowledging our actions, learning from our mistakes, and making amends where possible, we can begin to tip the scales back towards balance. In essence, karmic debt is a spiritual ledger, our actions the currency, and our journey, the repayment plan. It's a cycle of cause and effect, action and reaction, debt and repayment that guides our spiritual evolution. Just as we must repay our financial debts to avoid consequences, so must we address our karmic debts to attain spiritual balance. Now that we understand karmic debt, let's explore how it parallels with financial debt. Just as karmic debt arises from our actions, financial debt occurs when we borrow more than we can repay. Both are invisible burdens that we carry, often passed on from one period of our lives to another, or even from one generation to the next. Karmic debt, according to yogic philosophy, is the result of our past actions and decisions, both in this life and previous ones. Similarly, financial debt arises from our past financial decisions, such as taking out a loan or spending beyond our means. Both types of debt can accumulate over time, creating a snowball effect. Just as interest compounds on financial debt, the consequences of our actions can multiply in terms of karmic debt. And just like a high-interest loan, unresolved karmic debt can seem insurmountable, affecting our mental peace and overall well-being. Moreover, both karmic and financial debts can impact our lives negatively if left unaddressed. A heavy financial debt can limit our opportunities, restrict our freedom, and create a constant source of stress. Similarly, a heavy karmic debt can lead to challenging life circumstances, repeated patterns of suffering, and even impact our relationships. But there's good news. Both karmic and financial debts can be cleared with conscious effort. Financial debt requires a plan, discipline, and the willingness to live within our means. Likewise, karmic debt can be resolved through conscious actions, spiritual practices, and adopting a lifestyle of love, compassion, and selflessness. The parallels between karmic and financial debts are undeniable. Both remind us of the importance of living consciously, responsibly, and within our means. Both teach us the value of discipline, responsibility, and the impact of our actions. And both, when resolved, can lead to a sense of freedom, peace, and abundance. Indeed, karmic debt and financial debt share more similarities than one might initially think. So, how can we go about clearing these debts? The journey to debt-free living, both spiritually and financially, is a journey of self-discovery and deliberate action. To clear debts, we must first acknowledge them. Often, we carry the burden of past misdeeds and financial obligations without acknowledging their impact on our lives. As the ancient yogic philosophy teaches, the first step towards change is awareness. The second step is acceptance. Now let's talk about clearing karmic debts. In the yogic tradition, karmic debts are cleared through the practice of dharma, which is righteous living. This involves making amends for past wrongdoings, practicing forgiveness, and living in alignment with one's true self. It's about embracing the principle of ahimsa, which means non-violence in thought, word, and deed. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." On the other hand, clearing financial debts requires a more pragmatic approach. Start by creating a budget, identifying your debts, and establishing a repayment plan. This can be as simple as listing out your debts, determining a realistic monthly payment, and sticking to it. As Benjamin Franklin wisely pointed out, beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. In both cases, it's important to be patient with yourself. Clearing debts, whether karmic or financial, takes time. It's a process that requires commitment, discipline, and most importantly, self-forgiveness. You may stumble along the way, but remember, it's not about the fall, it's about getting back up. In conclusion, clearing past debts helps to pave the way for a future filled with abundance and love. It's about making peace with the past, taking control of the present, and shaping a prosperous future. As the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Remember, the path to clearing debts is not easy, but it's necessary for achieving abundance and love. Let's sum up what we've learned today. We've journeyed through an intriguing exploration of the connection between karmic and financial debts. We've seen how these two seemingly different concepts intertwine and mirror each other in profound ways. We started by delving into the concept of karmic debt, a spiritual principle found in many Eastern philosophies. Karmic debt, as we've learned, is the idea that our actions, both good and bad, have consequences that can carry over into our future lives. It's a cycle of cause and effect that governs our spiritual journey. Then, we drew parallels between this karmic debt and financial debts. We saw how financial obligations, like karmic ones, can accrue over time and impact our lives in significant ways. Both types of debt, we found, can weigh us down and prevent us from living freely and fully. But most importantly, we discovered that it's possible to clear these debts. With determination and a concerted effort, we can pay off our financial debts. Similarly, through conscious actions and spiritual practices, we can resolve our karmic debts. We can make amends for past wrongs and cultivate positive karma for the future. As the great yogi, Swami Sivananda, once said, "An ounce of practice is worth a ton of theory." So let's put these insights into practice. Let's work on clearing our debts, both financial and karmic. Let's strive to live debt-free, not just in a monetary sense, but also spiritually. In doing so, we can unlock a sense of freedom, abundance, and love. We can open ourselves up to new opportunities and experiences. We can live with a lighter heart and a clearer conscience, knowing that we've done our best to balance our spiritual and financial ledgers. As we conclude, remember that addressing both your spiritual and financial debts can pave the way for a more balanced and fulfilling life.